So, the people probably want to know kind of how this awesome relationship that we have has come to be. So, do you wanna share a little bit about how we met? And
well, I know we met back in 2005.
way back in the day,
2005.
2006,
No, it was 2005. Yeah.
7th grade.
Mhm. It was 2005, 2006.
You sure?
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah. So 2005, I was a case manager and special ed teacher, and I was in charge of a behavior support classroom
Okay.
in Harford County.
Right.
And you, mid-year, got put in our program. You weren't in there to begin with.
Okay.
I guess they tried some other things before.
I was bad in those things.
I remember the first time that I met you was actually in the IUP meeting that was going to determine that you were going to be placed in
Right.
the classroom support program. I remember that first IUP meeting, and you walked in with your slew of adults that were responsible for your well-being.
Yeah. So, we didn't mention this, but at that time, and prior to that, I was in foster care. At the time, by the time I got to your class that year, I had been I was actually in my third home at the time. So I was in one home. I got placed in my first home when I was 5. When I got taken from my mom's care, and I was placed in a home not too far actually from where I was going to school. And then I actually got taken from that home, placed in a different location in White Marsh, Maryland, and then Prairie Hall. And then we ended up moving back to that side of Harford County. And then I was like actually going back and forth between 2 homes at the time. So I had like 2 placements that I was in actually in the same year, like kind of bouncing back and forth like on a week by week, month by month type basis. So
I can't tell you one single thing about that meeting or what got or what got discussed or what, but I remember
it was a long time ago too.
I remember how adorable you were though. Like you had, and I can't remember the color, but I told you this before. You had a big oversized like windbreaker neon colored jacket on. It was either like yellow or like orange or green or something, but and I just remember like the serious look on your face and how like just serious and intense you looked to be in that meeting and to be a part of it and to be thinking, oh no, like what they're gonna do with me at school is about to change. I keep hearing like a text notification.
Yeah. Stop texting me.
You just looked so intense, like intensely worried about like what was gonna become of you, and it stuck out to me so much because it seemed like most of the kids that I worked with at that time like couldn't have cared less what they were gonna do. It was just like they were angry, like I don't care what I do, like they always had something to say, but you just sat there quietly, and it definitely like stuck out to me because it wasn't the norm. I was going to be in charge of the 7th and 8th graders, and you were in 7th grade, but it was like I was overwhelmed with 7th and 8th graders, and there weren't that many 6th graders. The other teacher was going to take the 6th graders.
Right.
And we decided to just give you to her too, because it was just like my numbers were too high on my caseload and hers weren't. Yeah. And like I just watched you for a couple days, and then I was like, no, I got to have him on my caseload. So I told her, I was like, no, I'm going to just take Derek.
Which in hindsight was definitely like a blessing in disguise. Right, because it's like had you not kind of had that on your heart, I could have been with
her, right, the other teacher,
and then it'd have been like, who knows would have come of our relationship after that, So,
for sure, So you can already see God working there, right?
Yeah.
I feel like you weren't in our program for very long before things with your foster family that you were in at the time started to just like unravel quickly and like go downhill.
Yeah.
And it was like there was always some drama. It was always you acting out in school, and the foster parent had to be called, and the foster parent would get really like upset with you, and there'd be like issues at home, or else you wouldn't go home after school. You'd go somewhere else. No one knew where you were, and there'd be 20 teachers from the school driving around trying to find Derek.
Where's Derek?
Where is he? Yeah. So right?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is trying to, as a 12-year-old, trying to juggle the like emotional issues that go along with like family, but not knowing how to like completely like be invested, because like emotions shift from one moment to another. And so I think that was a really big issue I was having, because I have to go to school, and I have to interact with my teachers, and I have to be respectful, and I have to follow directions and things of that nature. But it's like I can't even, like, I don't even know if my parents even want me, or like how they feel about me. So how can
by that you mean foster parents.
Right. So how can I juggle,
be on my A game at school?
Right. But with doing that with people of authority of like 4 or 5 different individuals, So I think that was the big challenge, and it manifested itself in getting into a lot of trouble. And put myself in a lot of crazy situations.
Yeah, and I remember when it was like the last straw, and like the foster parents decided that definitely you needed to leave.
Yeah.
And like find somewhere else to stay, and you got
which is kind of like at the end of the year now.
Yeah, it was pretty close to the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
And you got put in a temporary foster home that was close to the school too, so you could keep going to the same school for the time being.
Right.
But I remember your caseworker came and met with me at school, and you weren't in school that day.
Right.
And he said, I just need to let you know Derek's probably going to be transferring schools.
Right.
And having to go to a placement in Baltimore County somewhere.
Right.
And I like lost my mind. Like it was like the worst day of the whole school year. It was really crazy. Like I remember I was sitting in we had like a counselor who was affiliated with our program, and we went into her office because it was small and it was like intimate, and it was she and I and your caseworker from your agency at the school, and he was like telling me this, and I'm like sobbing. I had my head just like down on the table, and I'm just like sobbing and couldn't breathe, and like there were blinds between that office and my classroom, and my other kids were like peeking through the blinds, like what's the matter with Miss Wilkinson? Like she's lost it.
Yeah.
And I told him like you can't, like especially not with a month of school left, you can't pull him out of school and put him somewhere else. That's crazy. Like I have a relationship with him. Like I'm the only one that like he has a stable relationship with right now. He's losing his placement. Like you can't completely rip away everything all at once. And so then he figured out, after that conversation, that temporary placement would keep you until the end of the school year, so that you could just see the school year through.
Right, which was the placement that I had already been going to on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and they were not really very fluently English speaking, were they?
No, they were not. They were a bilingual family,
and by bilingual you mean mostly Spanish speaking.
Mostly Spanish, and I'm not Spanish, so that like definitely was difficult.
Right.
They actually had a young boy who was, I think, was 2 years younger than me, which made it kind of fun in some aspects, but at the same time it was hard because it was literally less than a mile from where I actually lived, and with that being the case, I had all the same friends, and like they know, the kids notice everything, so it's like 1 minute he's going here to sleep, and the next minute he's going here, like what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
So it definitely added a lot of stress to, even more to not only being in foster care, but trying to deal with that too.
And I remember one time, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but like you got in trouble for something, and we ended up in the principal's office, and or the assistant principal's office, and the determination was made like not to suspend you, because I think we felt like at that time a suspension wouldn't have been good, because it would have just been like at the respite placement all day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they had you stay after school to work on and catch up on some schoolwork. You had to stay after school for a certain period of time.
Right.
So you had a little desk outside of the assistant principal's office that you were supposed to sit at and have like work to work on. And I remember after school, I came to check on you to see like how that situation was going, and you didn't have any work to work on. You were like, I don't have any work to work on, and the assistant principal was like, is there anything we can do? Like, can we get him some work? Like, he's supposed to be working on something. So I took you back to my classroom with me, and we were like sorting through some stuff so that I could give you a little pile of like things that you could work on. And I remember you sat down in a chair and just tears just started streaming down your face, like silently. Like you didn't say anything or say like that you were upset or that you were stressed out. You just sat down, got quiet, and just tears just flooding down your face. And it made me so sad, and I just knelt down beside you, and I didn't know what to say really because I couldn't offer any help, right?
Yeah.
It was like, your situation's horrible.
Yeah.
Sorry. You know, so I remember that, and I remember that night was when I went home and talked to my husband, talked to Uncle Jay, and said, like, is there anything that we can do? Like, would you ever consider, like, trying to take him if there's any way we could do that? And he was very open to it. And, you know, background story on that is that we were already licensed to adopt because we had already thought that we wanted to adopt at that point. Just never thought it would be like an older kid, right? We thought like little kids. It finally turned out that they kind of all talked about it together and said that we would need to go to Baltimore to their little specific therapeutic foster care agency and get licensed with their agency, and that would be the only way that we could do it. So. And then once your caseworker called me, and it was like a decision was made that we were gonna start trying to do it. I remember that's what you were talking about.
So that day, I remember. All I remember is just sitting outside, and you know how the school is kind of like you had like that U-shaped section or whatever. So we go outside, we sit and usually when you pull me like that. And it's like we go somewhere to chat. It's like you have news. So like I'm already kind of preparing myself for like, all right, what's she about to tell me? So I remember you kind of going into the whole idea of like, what do you think about? I know that you're gonna be leaving your foster home, like not really knowing like where you're gonna be placed.
Well, and I didn't know if your worker had talked to you about it already. So I said to you, what has your worker talked to you about recently? Like to find out if he had already talked to you about it. And then you informed me that there was such thing as confidentiality and that you didn't have to tell me what you didn't have to tell me what you and your worker talked about.
That's true. I did say that. So yeah, after we had that
oh my word.
That exchange, I was like you started to share like more about like kind of how you felt and like where you kind of felt your heart was at and like how you wanted to move forward. And yeah, I think you remember more about just the speech that I gave you in terms of like, you know, I never thought a teacher would be willing to take me. I'm such a lot to handle and and I have this and X, Y, and Z and stuff. But yeah, I remember the conversation. I remember saying, yeah, like I would like that. And that kind of like started the journey that I thought that like life was going to take us on. So this is the end of the school year. With a couple of days left. And funny story. So for whatever reason, right? It's June. It's hot. I decide on the last day of school to wear a full suit.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, right?
Yeah, it was fancy too.
It was not
like
fancy.
Gray.
No, it was.
It
like,
had a clip-on tie.
It was like beige.
Oh, was it beige?
It was like
a beige.
Yeah, it was a beige suit with a blue shirt.
Okay.
With a clip-on striped tie.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out.
It was like a whole ensemble.
Why I did it? Who knows? No one knows. No one knows why I did it. It was the most ridiculous thing, and we took those silly pictures of me standing on a chair because I was like 4 foot nothing at the time and like 70 pounds soaking wet maybe, and I wanted to feel tall, so I stood on a chair as I took a picture next to you.
Yeah.
To make me taller than you. But I leave from Harford County. And I moved back to Baltimore, and I get placed in a temporary placement. And as we like move into the summer, and as you know the summer is kind of going along or whatever, I start therapy down there in Baltimore. And in one of my therapy sessions, so there was another kid in the home during that time, and so we actually went to the same therapy facility or whatever, and we were both getting therapy together, and one of the counselors came out to the game room where we were waiting for our ride and was like, can I talk to both of y'all real quick? And he pulls out both of our files and he looks at it and he goes through it or whatever, and he looks up at us and he says, do you guys know that you guys are brothers? And so I'm 13 at the time. My brother Darrell was 7, 8. I just remember looking at Darrell, not saying anything, and Darrell looked at me and was like, brothers, what? And which was so crazy because we've been living together for like the past 2 months now. It's like July, right? So I'm like, what the heck? Like, that's crazy. So, I go back to my foster placement that I was at the time, and I asked the foster parent, like, hey, what the heck is going on? Like, no one told us this, And so after I got that news, it made it, knowing what I knew about foster care and how sporadic things can be and how there's so much uncertainty, it hurt me to my heart to think that I would be placed with my brother and have the potential to kind of grow up with him in a sense, in that placement that I was at, to leave that so quick, like to find out in a short amount of time and then leave.
So the caseworker pulled me into his office and said, he's going to this new placement, but it's only temporary, and you need to know his little brother's there. Showed us a picture, pulled out a picture of Darrell and showed it to us. And I was like, oh my word, like he was little and he looked like you, but he was smaller. He looked like you enough. And
no, so he's hideous.
He's not. He's really super adorable. He's got really sweet dimples. He's really very adorable. So I see the
like
picture.
Like a baby dinosaur in the face.
Come on, this isn't even.
He
nice.
does.
So I see the picture and I said to the caseworker, I was like, well, we'll take both of them.
Right.
And he laughed and he said, no, the foster parents are considering adopting the little brother. Oh, foster parent is considering adopting the little brother and can't have Derek stay there long term. Right. So we don't want the boys to find out that they're brothers because we can't have them stay together.
You kind of have to understand the context of, like, when I first came into care, I was placed with my older siblings, right? It was like me and my 2 older siblings was placed in our first home. And then you got pulled apart. And then it was like one by one, I ended up being by myself. So I realized how that felt as a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, being in a home with people that you don't feel safe with, and people that you don't really feel like care for you.
And so you didn't want to leave him and have him
feel that same way. So it's one of those things that's a hard pill to swallow, but at the same time, is, as a 13-year-old, it's hard to,
Right.
So I headed into high school. High school was fine, in the meantime, you start having little babies.
Oh yeah. Well, and your brother ends up ultimately not staying in the placement.
So, yeah, I want to say by the time I was in high school, he was gone. So he probably stayed up maybe like a year and a half after that. So I really wasn't with him that too long, which was disappointing because that was the whole reason that I stayed. But at this point in time, being a year and a half in and, going into high school now and having, made the football team and things of that nature, like, you kind of feel like you're invested in, not necessarily in the family, but in just like what you're doing. So, and stability is a big thing with like foster kids. Like, I think for me, I just wanted to feel like I had some certainty, right? Like that things were always up in the air.
I was so devastated that it didn't work out, and I had my like complete life like planned around this is what's gonna happen. I had your room decorated. I had like LeBron posters and like a bed and desk and like all the like things, and pictures hanging on the wall and like everything that I could. Your closet was like full of clothes. Like friends of mine who knew you from school and stuff had bought you clothes and given them to me to put in the closet. Like we had gone through a lot, so I was like so devastated that I didn't even want to adopt or do foster care anymore. Right. Like I didn't even want to go that route anymore.
Right.
So it wasn't long after all of that came to a head that we decided, like, let's just have a baby. We'll just start our family that way. We will for sure get to keep our baby. Like, we will.
That's a fact.
Right. So
yeah. So
it seemed certain, and I didn't think I could take any more of that uncertainty anymore because it was so sad.
Yeah.
So
uncertainty is not good, as we experienced through COVID.
sure.
But yeah, so I find myself kind of like scrambling. You know, I think I had some okay friends, relatively, right? And we kind of, you know, just we started living life. You know, I didn't really ever hold a job for that long. Kind of like back and forth, trying to figure out what job, you know, makes the most money in a short amount of time, and you know, how can I get there and get home and make sure that I have weekends off so I can go party. And that was the plan, right? Like that was a plan. Stack up your money during the week, every 2 weeks, like get paid, go blow it, get fresh, go to parties. Like that was literally my agenda. Which it didn't really pan out too well in the long run. Made a lot of bad decisions and stuff like that, and just a part of growing up really, and knowing what works and what doesn't, and what's gonna lead you to, you know, a bright future instead of a nasty one. So I found myself aging out, which I think was probably the hardest year of my life. The year I turned 21. And so in the meantime, between these like 18, 19, 20, 21, we kind of reconnect through social media.
You also talked about
I actually
how...
could you co-sign for a loan.
You did.
Just let me take out 20 grand in your name real quick. Just real quick.
Right.
I'll pay it back when I graduate.
Right. So,
7
but
years.
then we thought, well, okay, if you're willing to go to a 4-year school, get a bachelor's degree, why don't you just go to like one of the Maryland schools, because it's free. If you go in state, it's free for foster kids. So we thought, we looked into Salisbury, we looked at Frostburg. I think we sent your application in for a couple of them. They said they'd waive the application fees. They were super sweet.
Right.
And then you were like, you called me one day and said, oh, I can't go to one of those schools because where's my stuff going to be while I'm there? And what am I going to do? I'm not going to have anywhere to come home to. And I was like, gosh, that's the reason to go, so that you can establish a life for yourself.
But
so
nobody wants to spend Thanksgiving in a lunch hall. Things are getting
Get a job at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, get a job at Chick-fil-A, which is kind of awesome, but it's not awesome because I got to take a bus and 2 trains to get there. Because I'm living on the west side of Baltimore City, you know, and the Chick-fil-A was on the other side of the harbor, so had to take 2 buses and a train to get there, and it was a grind. But like I said, mom's situation wasn't very much better. You know, we couldn't keep the lights on. You know, during the winter months it was cold, didn't have any heat. You know, in the summertime, that summer it was hot. No AC, no lights, sometimes no water. So it was rough, and it was hard to contribute, but also put myself in a position to like grow and like try to better myself too. So made it tough. So a big moment. My older brother, who was living with my mom at the time, who was kind of like paying a lot of the bills and expenses for the house we were living in, was moving, and my mother and my sister were also moving, which kind of left me as the third wheel in a sense. And so I just remember getting off of work one night at Chick-fil-A and walking into my room, and it was like dismantled, whatever I was staying in. Dismantled, bed taken apart, propped up against the wall, and all of my stuff in like a plastic bag in the middle of the floor. And I was just like, what the heck is going on? You know, we exchanged some words, me and my mom did, and then, you know, I ended up leaving. And so I was kind of, at that point, I was really at my wit's end, right? Because I go from, you know, feeling like, okay, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life, but at least I have somewhere to stay in the meantime while I try to figure it out. So we get back to my friend's house where I'm staying, and we pull up, and you're just like, what are you gonna do? Like, what's your plan? And I'm like, I'm a keep working.
I'm gonna get these frozen pizzas out of the trunk.
I am.
And my air mattress.
Word.
I'm gonna take them in the house.
I'm gonna make them jump. But when you were like, what's my plan? Like, how am I gonna move forward? And I'm just like, I'm gonna work at Chick-fil-A until I can pay off, so I can pay rent to stay with my friend, pay rent to my mom's friend, and yeah, we go from there. And you're like, no, like, what's your plan, like, in life? Like, what are you gonna do with your life? And you know, that was a question that like I definitely wasn't prepared to answer, and it like kind of hurt me because it was like I really didn't have one. right? Like I didn't know what I wanted to do, and you know, I was 22 now, and I'm getting older, and I feel like I have no plan, and like I feel like I never really had one, and it was hard to, you know, swallow that. So you're like, listen, like you can come stay with us. We can figure out kind of like what we want to do. You want to do a CDL program, your license will be in 30 days. You can come stay with us. We figure it out. 10 weeks, you can have your CDLs. You know, you can start working a job that makes decent money. You can take care of yourself. I come.
Yay!
And I'm finally here. Yeah. And I think, it was a lot in a short period of time. Glory be to God. Things got better.
Yeah. It was rough at first, like what you were used to, and like the moral code or whatever that you were used to living by. Yeah. And like you had standards and you had like, you know, rights and wrongs and stuff like that, but they were different and not on the same level as like we kind of needed them to be, right? Especially with like a young family with and it was like, you know, unfortunately you're not the only kid who lives here. There's 3 little girls watching your every move, so you have to act like it, you know, and that was probably hard. Which is tough for sure. But like I said, glory be to God, things got better. And, you know, as time went on, just periodically, you know, I kind of was able to shed a lot of the baggage that I came in with, and kind of, you know, was able to gain a lot of wisdom from you guys, and from a lot of people that, you know, began investing in me, which I'm super thankful for. Yeah. And it was like God put like mentors in place right at the right times. You know what I mean? Like you were able to cultivate like a pretty special relationship with like the pastor of our church for some reason, and so that was helpful for you. And then, you know, through the FCA ministry that you were involved in, like the head of that, you know, was hugely instrumental, you know, in your life. So I mean, so just random men were placed in your life to kind of like lead you at certain times, like when you needed, Uncle Jay. So just a lot of different things kind of lined up for me, and Pop Up Mike. It's the list goes on and on for sure. Sorry for anybody that we leave out, but so things we're going started to go really well. I figure out what I'm supposed to do with my life. Yeah, not be a CDL driver then. Not be a CDL driver. You know, not be a cook at Chick-fil-A, even though I appreciated that job a lot. And you can still fry some mean chicken, really, right? I do make good chicken. Good chicken. But anyway, so now being a senior in the health and phys ed program, going into my last semester, which will be student teaching, I'm super excited to be a future educator. To do some virtual HPE student teaching. The fall will be a crazy time. But so just to think how far I've come during this time, and how much I've grown, and how much help I've gotten along the way, right? Like just being in a position where I can just look back and say like, gosh, like, you know, I can say like this has been my story, but in reality, so many people have played a part in my success.